Okay, so I wanted to have a mission statement to make sure everybody understood what I'm trying to do and what we want it to happen, and so everyone feels that they're a part of everything here. So um, the mission of the User Experience Working Group is to make Istio easily learnable, understandable, and misconfigurations easily fixable. Istio should be configurable and must benefit operators and developers of all skill levels. People have given me feedback that we've been focused on advanced operators, and I want to make sure we hit all of our stakeholders. The UX Working Group establishes relationships with third parties who produce tools in the Istio ecosystem to help them deliver better integration with core Istio features. I want us to reach out to people like Aston Mesh who are making their Istio validation tools so that we don't try to take everything on ourselves. I want to play well with others. The UX Working Group contributes code to core Istio. We want to improve Istio control, the help install option, and the other tools to give better visibility into what Istio is doing and what it is not doing. We campaign for good installation defaults, reduce unnecessary configuration options, and against surprising behavior. We improve error messages to make them better, more visible, and closer to the problem. We improve the configuration, troubleshooting, and debugging experience for Istio users of all skill levels. So, I'm really going to get on people to just make a PR just to improve the error messages. That would be great. They're confusing. The UX Working Group collaborates with the Documentation Working Group as part of improving the tools and to guide users to the documentation. We also create documentation for the Istio tool experience. The UX Working Group collaborates with the Configuration Working Group to ensure that the tools render the configuration correctly and in an understandable way. Istio ships with 55 CRDs that configure Istio. Our mission is to help developers know which CRDs to apply. We also make tools to show operators which CRDs affect their microservice. We aim to improve Istio not by improving the networking performance. The UX group, our goal is to reduce the time it takes developers to learn to deploy an Istio. For us, agility of deployment as well as uptime is more important than latency time. It must be easy to find and remediate Istio misconfigurations. And early on, I got some feedback about this. Istio cares about performance. I want us to focus on learnability and uptime, remediation time. That's our key metric. The UX Working Group widens the abstraction level. We support users of different roles interacting with services on a high level, but also mapping to a low level as needed for performance analysis and troubleshooting.
So this morning in the steering committee, we talked about the fact that the TOC asked the steering committee to conduct user satisfaction surveys, and the steering committee thought this would be a good job for the UX working group. So I imagine the survey we send out to all known users today, and maybe we leave a link to the survey on the main istio.io website, so as new people come on board, they can chime in.
That would be great. What can we do to get more people to do the survey and to get the results analyzed and discussed here?
Well, so we could. Well, first we need to create the survey.
Yeah, so the ask for this group is to create the survey, and then we have social media and discuss to help us promote and have users answer the survey.
Correct.
So this is very exciting to me, although I've not really written a survey. Is there anyone who's skilled in writing surveys and knows what kind of questions will get people to reveal the truth? Looking for volunteers.
If you've ever probed kids on how their homework is going, that's very similar, I think.
Okay.
Okay, so the
Hey, can you guys hear me?
we,
Can I talk? No?
is there a starting point for this, or is it really just, yeah, let's kind of work as a group, so kind of come up with a survey that the kind of user questions we're interested in, or is there a starting point?
So I've got a survey that I started for contributors, how happy they are with the development process. But I did some brief research this weekend to see if I could steal something from somebody else, and I couldn't find anything. So I don't know if there's something for user
Someone
satisfaction.
muted you. Press *6 to unmute.
It wasn't me. I didn't mute anybody.
Yeah, I think Sven was trying to talk too.
Sven? Sven, were you the one who was muted?
If you're muted, say so.
Yeah.
So it said press *6 to unmute yourself. I don't know. Sven?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hey, sorry, I had been trying to talk earlier. Can you guys hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay. Yeah, I was connected through a phone. It wasn't working. So sorry about that. We missed the last 3 minutes of talk.
So tell me your ideas for the user experience survey.
So it was the same thing that Martin was just talking about. So I was just going to bring up that we had talked about it in steering, but I don't know if people had mentioned it. Ram had volunteered to help work on the survey. He couldn't be here today at this meeting, but he wanted to work with you to figure out how to do that.
Okay, I would love to work with Ram on the survey.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously, it should be a mixture of open-ended stuff like suggestions for improvement, and then more focused questions about specific behaviors and components of the stack.
That makes sense. And I want some questions to find the role of the person who's sort of answering the survey, because it may be that everyone who sees themselves as an operator likes it, everyone who sees themselves as a developer does not, or everyone who sees themselves as a beginner likes it, or advanced does not, or vice versa. But yes, I think this would be great. I will take this up with Ram.
Yeah, and we can get one of our UX study people maybe to review it as well.
Okay.
They probably have a bit more operational experience in terms of running surveys.
Okay.
Could ask Daniel to help organize that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the idea is basically the sooner we can get that, the sooner we can figure out where people are actually having pain points today and try to help address them as part of this group.
Okay. I don't know if do we have any other surveys? Does IBM have any customer surveys, or Google have any customer surveys that we could leverage? I couldn't find any.
We have ones that we have done for our products, but not any for open source.
Okay.
So it's a little hard to share
Does
that.
Kubernetes have something? Might have something.
I think they run an annual user survey.
Yeah, we could crib from them maybe.
If their survey is open source, we could reuse some of the questions.
Yep.
Okay. Well, this is good. This will give us some tasks for the next meeting. Are we concluded with the user experience discussion?
Survey discussion, yeah.
Yeah. So we have Hubeng Zhao, who was scheduled last meeting, and we didn't have the meeting, to talk about his feedback from using Istio in production. Hubeng, are you there? Can you share your screen and present to us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I'm having trouble hearing you. I can hear you quietly.
Okay, thank you. I will try to present my screen.
I'm gonna.
What happened?
So I stopped sharing so Hubeng could share.
Okay, it's my first time use this WebEx, so how could I share my screen?
In WebEx, there will be a button called Share Content. It's the third button from the left. It looks like an up arrow with a line below it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Is it coming?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So first, next thank Vincent for inviting me here.
I don't think the volume's working here. I don't know if others can hear, but I can barely hear.
Yeah, I hear a
Yeah,
whisper.
I can barely hear.
Okay, is that better now? Hello?
That's better.
A little better. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I think the connection bad, but I will try to speak clearly. First, I'd like to thank for Vincent and Ed for inviting me here. My name is Huabin Zhao. I'm a software engineer of ZT Corporation. I work in the OSS department. I'm responsible for driving the Istio integration with our 5G OSS system in my company. Here is the agenda. First, I'd like to briefly introduce how we integrate Istio with our OSS system and to leverage its service communication and management capabilities. Then I will talk about the obstacles we have been facing when we try to integrate Istio and how we try to solve them. And I hope I could get some help and suggestion from the community with this problem. So for the control plane component of our source mesh solution, we pick the pilot from Istio for traffic management and a mixture for telemetry collection. We use the console for the service registry. Besides that, we create our own some own few component like the registrator to transparently register the service on behalf of the application, our configuration server to provide RESTful APIs for the Istio routing rules, and our camera server to provide RESTful API for camera deployment because it's one of our main use case, and also our user-friendly UI to configuration for the configuration and development deployment. Right now, we don't use Citadel for authentication operation. We just use our own application level authentication and authorization. But maybe in future we will consider using it for the internal to security for the security of internal service communication. For the data plane component, we deploy the microservice and in OSLK in the Kubernetes cluster. For each pod, we have the OSLK to serve out the service intercommunication proxy, and we also have Innova in the entrance of the system to handle the outbound traffic of the API gateway to form our unified service mesh with the OSLK. So actually, we use a combination of API gateway and NOA as the entrance instead of only our Istio ingress gateway. I will explain the details in later slides. We don't use the Istio egress to control outbound traffic. Actually, we think it's a little bit hard to tell which external services needed to be accessed by the internal services in advance, especially in a dynamic network. For example, some external services are registered to our system in the runtime. So we just redirect the request of the service in our own system. We just leave the extra service bypass So as I was saying, we use a combination of universal sidecar and API gateway as the entrance to our system, and so that's the reason. Because API gateway actually and API gateway and the Istio Ingress gateway, they do have some overlap feature. For example, like virtual hosting, SSO termination, and service discovery, load balancing. But the key objective of using API gateway for us is to expose these services as managed API. So the API gateway layer mainly serves as some specific API management functionalities such as authentication and authorization of external requests, transformation of incoming data, API lifecycle management, billing and rate limiting, etc. So neither the Istio gateway.
Hey, can you close whatever dialog box you have up on the right above your slides? It's in the way of the slides.
Okay, you mean this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
That's better. Thank you.
So neither the Istio gateway nor API gateway could finish the job on their own. So we decided to have them work together to provide a comprehensive functional service entrance for our service mesh system.
Mike, can you comment on how many pods you have in your deployment? Is this a small deployment or extremely large?
Right now we have some external deployment. It's about 100 to 200 microservices instance inside our Kubernetes cluster. I think it's not a very large deployment. So this figure shows how we combine the API gateway and the NOA as the traffic entrance for our system. API gateway just simply uploads the service discovery and the traffic management functionality to the NOA sidecar and focus on the API management feature. So for us, I think it's a clear picture. The two components now serve two different requirements, but also cooperate with each other. And a good thing that the NOA sidecar at the entrance and both the NOA sidecar at the entrance and inside of the mesh are controlled by our the same control plane. So we can leverage the Istio capability at the unified manner. Okay, later I will introduce some obstacles we have been facing in this journey. First one is the support of multiple network interface. So this is the first problem we faced when we integrate Istio, because in our use case, and in telecom use cases, we often need to support multiple network interface for some reason, like functional separation of control and data network plane, link aggregation and bounding for redundancy of network, support for implementation of different network service level agreements, and network segregation and security, etc. But actually, Istio 1.0 can't support a load with more than one network interface. So the problem is that when Inouye will consider a request to these services co-located in the same node with this Inouye instance, but with a different IP as an outbound request. So actually, it's an inbound request. So as a result, request is redirected to the Inouye inventory, and Inouye will crash at the end. So we create an issue and push a request to the Istio, and it was merged to the 1.0 to fix it. Another issue for us is that the conflicts between the HTTP and the TCP outbound listener. The problem is that paired compliance outbound listener conflict when there are HTTP and headless TCP service listening on the same port, or multiple headless TCP service listening on the same port. And the conflict TCP traffic are simply dropped by Inouye, resulting in application errors. So there is a assumption here right now in the Istio that TCP services should have a unique IVIP. Otherwise, service port must be deliberately allocated to avoid conflicting with each other, which is not always practical in production, because sometimes we can't just arrange the port for a lot of microservices. They will choose whatever port they want to use. The expected behavior is that we want to let the TCP traffic fail through. This is better than simply drop the TCP traffic. We think maybe PAD could develop a mechanism to allow multiple headless TCP services and HTTP services listening on the same port, and pass through the TCP services to its original destination when there is conflict. So the below. Okay.
Well, maybe quick question. Did you have an example of this use case? Just is this for redundancy between what are really the same, it's really the same service, just running in multiple places, or are these literally two different services performing different actions, but you're wanting them to listen on the same port? Do you have an example of a service like that?
So the below figure shows an example. For example, I have HTTP services which maybe provide some RESTful APIs, and I also have another TCP services. Maybe we have some private protocol based on TCP, which simply Istio can't understand, or maybe just some like FTP services like that. But for some reason, because these two services are developed by two teams, so for some reason they have to choose the same port, like 1102. When we try to integrate their services into our the system, and try to build run these two services on top of Istio, Istio will complain that okay, there are conflict between these two services because we don't use VIP. I mean, in our Kubernetes cluster, we don't use the VIP. We just use the pod IP. So the TCP service will be listening on the how to say that 0000 IP address. So the parrot will complain the conflict. So that's an example. And the warning, the right part is the warning. The parrot will put in the log.
So
I have an issue
I want
for this one.
Beng, I want to make sure we get to all of your slides. How many more slides do we have?
Okay, I think only a few then. Three more.
Okay.
So this is captured in an issue that you've opened, this last one?
Sorry, what's the question?
Feature request or?
Yeah, I think it's a feature request, or maybe I also think it's maybe a problem right now.
Yeah, well, so but you do have a feature. Do you have an issue number for this?
Yeah. I will give the issue number the next slide. Okay, here.
And so I think
issue number.
Louis just left, but he was asking that you bring these things over to the networking working group meeting. If you haven't already, just come in and let them know about all this stuff.
Not yet.
Okay.
I created the issue, and I happen to meet Lin Sun in Twitter, and so I come here.
Okay. Yeah. I think it'd be very useful for them to know about these issues.
Yeah, I think having generic problem presented here is really helpful for this group too, but specific network problem, especially your solution portion, the network work group definitely would sound the right place. Because that's, at the end of the day, you have to push the changes through the network working group for networking specific changes.
Yeah, I think just to echo what Lynn's saying, I'm not saying don't do it here. I'm just saying, like, not everyone from networking is here, so it'd be good to also let them know. Yeah, but it's very useful for us too, just to see the kind of shape of different problems people have.
Okay, I think I will try to reach out to the network working group and to ask for their help after the meeting. Thanks all for your suggestion. Yeah. So should I continue this one or?
So maybe the further networking stuff, you could send the slides, and I will try to make sure that there's issues for them, and we can try to get you to present your solution to the networking group. If you have new problems, we could discuss them, or we could move on to other things on the agenda.
Okay. Okay, just to skip this slide. So this is some other issue we have experienced. Some fixed or partially solved problem, including supported stick session for weight-based routing. We created the issue, and it was fixed in the Istio. And another service meta should be used instead of load meta for console registry. Okay, already fixed and major to Istio. The paired high CPU usage will work with console registry, include in Istio 1.1 and fixed in our fork. Too many time wait socks caused by paired console registry fixed in our fork. Established TCP collection destroyed by when no one receive configuration from paired. I think it's an issue for us. It's partially fixed and the PR is merged into Istio. Below is the scene we need help. First one is the issue 11971. The established downstream stream collection shouldn't be destroyed by enroy, and it's the upstream service calls the collection itself. And otherwise, the listener conflict I mentioned before. And right now we are working on the IP version 6 support on our own fork. Okay, I think that's all. Thanks you. 谢谢.
Thank you so much for all your hard work, Yubang.
Okay, I will end the sharing.
So I wanted to have a demo on every one of these calls, and the demo that I have today is something that I have been working on, which is an Istio control dashboard command. So the idea behind this command, let me see if I can make my screen a little bigger, is Istio control dashboard. If you do that, it will list the dashboards that I have implemented. I've also, on this particular build, gotten rid of all of the log rotation stuff, which is always scrolls away the stuff I want to see when I use Istio control, and I have an idea for that as well. So if I do dashboard, say Kiali, when I do that, it does all the stuff that we tell people to do to run Kiali. It does a port forward and sets up, it opens the browser for that place and just brings it up. That's all it does. It's very simple code. This whole thing is very small. I also have implemented dashboard for the other things you see here, Grafana and Prometheus, which are system-wide. For the other things, they're sidecar dashboards. So if I do dashboard Envoy, I have to give it the name of a pod. And it brings up that particular thing. And I also put the dashboard in for Control-Z, which I thought was interesting because a lot of people tell me they've never heard of Control-Z, even though it's in our documentation. Actually, it works. Control-Z works on the pilot pod. So if I do ask for the Control-Z and ask for pilot, it brings up this interface. And if you look at memory usage, it gives you the live memory usage. A lot of people tell me they have been trying to look at these kind of things for Istio, and they weren't aware this was here. So I just threw this together, but I was wondering if anyone liked this idea of having a dashboard control. I saw that Linkerd has one, so I thought we should have one, but of course we don't have an integrated experience.
What happens if you haven't installed, I don't know, Zipkin or Jaeger or whatever you've just...
Right, so I don't have Zipkin installed right now. So when I do that, I do have Zipkin installed. It says there's a customized error message for each one. It says there's no, or couldn't find Zipkin pod or something like that. It doesn't give you anything like here's how to use Helm to turn on Zipkin if you want it, which would be what I'd be looking for from you, Frank, suggestions on how to handle those messages.
And is the dashboard active as long as you haven't done the Control-C?
Yeah. So until you do Control-C, there's a port forward going.
I was just making sure that the Control-C was killing the port forward and stuff.
Yeah. So the port forward is just running in there. It's the same thing we use. The code is the same code we use for the proxy config command, which does the same thing as the Envoy dashboard. It just sets up the port forward until the user does Control-C. It's not shelling anything out like that it's using the API machinery APIs, I think, to start the port forward.
I know it would be a lot more work. We thought about doing a UI for this. So rather than a command line that points to a bunch of UIs, have kind of like a wrapper UI around this stuff.
That's kind of Kiali already, isn't it? Like if you do the dashboard Kiali, that's kind of like the wrapper.
So Kiali have all the, so Kiali has Control Z, Envoy Admin UI, Prometheus, Zipkin.
I don't think it has everything, and I think longer term, I want to go to something where there is a wrapper. So I may, there's been, some people asked me to show this. I wasn't really ready to show it, but if you ever have used Linkerd, this is its user interface, which I've sort of made screen captures for, so I don't have to run Linkerd right now. But maybe at the next meeting, I could show you sort of a competitive thing. What does Linkerd have that we don't have? How do you use it? So one thing that's great with Linkerd is you bring it up, it has this overview listing all your pods. It's somewhat hard to see here, but every sort of pod has a little Grafana whirlpool, and if you click on that button, it brings up Grafana for that pod. So so it's got this central, panel plus details thing, and then links to all of its stuff. And that is what we don't have. So you could imagine, and I could,
Kiali either does or has aims to do all of that exactly, huh?
Right, but I could imagine like a 100-line UI that just does sort of what we saw for Kiali, or not for Kiali, for Linkerd to bring it up, and sort of points people to things like. There is a few things in Kiali that the UI is interesting, but mostly it's extremely simple stuff that we already could do. Documentation just takes you to their homepage. It does have some forms to help you create your initial deployment, but they're really simple. And the simplicity is kind of inspiring. Like I was interested when I went to, I believe it was TAP, one of these, and I told it that I wanted it to, I don't have a good screenshot of it, but I told it I wanted to make a new service, and it asked me a question about the namespace and the service name, and then it sort of popped up this. Instead of having a wizard with all these questions for, what URL paths do you do, it just popped up a huge thing of commented out YAML boilerplate. So their user interface was trivial. It just fills out a template. You could easily do something the same way, and maybe that
easy way out, right?
Right.
Next editor from there.
RAM is not on this call. IBM has an open source thing that could be that, or we could do something that's really trivial and tiny. But
you're thinking at the top level, something like their main dashboard would be replacing Istio Control here, basically, as just the launch for all of those different dashboards.
Well, so putting all these dashboards here is nice because it lets people know what they all are. It's hard to find them walking around our dashboard, and it also lets us sort of test them. Every release I have to go through all the Istio Control documentation and test every subcommand. So it's sort of nice to have them here to remind you that we have all these things. And then maybe people just want to bring up Kiali or Jaeger or something. I don't know. Your call.
Yeah, I think it would be really nice to have kind of
just getting into the build and having people play with it, because before 1.2 comes out, we have a lot of time to experiment.
Right. And I've put it under experimental for now, but maybe in 1.2 it can be Istio Control dashboard of the experimental if we like it. If we don't like it, we can make our own dashboard.
How
I guess it'd be really nice if we can just do Istio CTL dashboard and bring up a simple UI for user to click on Control C Envoy, Grafana, or Jaeger, whichever is installed on the system.
So I agree. And for these are global. We can just bring them up. These two require a pod to be selected. So then we need a browser of all the pods in the user's namespace. So if anyone has such a tool, I would be happy to let it collaborate with them on how to put this best into the tool.
There's also the Kubernetes UI, right? That like there's potential for adding extensions to or nesting or whatever to have that link to Control Z and the envoys or something.
I don't know how to add to the Kubernetes UI, but if anyone does, and they can make a prototype of how to add Istio stuff into that dashboard to show cool things, that would be awesome. I would give you a lot of space at the next one of these meetings to demo your ideas. So that's that subcommand, which I implemented. I have a couple other experimental ones we could also discuss.
I have a question.
Yes.
So this is not going to be like the Kubernetes dashboard, right? Because if you use Kubernetes dashboard, it actually asks you to deploy a pod in the cluster to show the dashboard. Are you planning to do something like that, or is this only in Istio User?
So I would like to do it locally instead of requiring a pod, and that's because that's what I saw done for Linkerd 2. So if I go to just Linker, hang on, what am I? Oh yeah. If you do Linkerd, it's got a dashboard. I misspelled Linkerd. Link. If you bring it up, it brings it up locally. It's got its own web server that's serving it right out of this process, and it's got this very nice UI that's live, that's presenting all this stuff. This would be the dream if anyone has something like this to contribute. I don't have one,
Okay.
but I wanted to lead people to the stuff that we did have really easily while we're waiting for that to materialize. And I don't know how to get there.
Okay. Thanks.
I think it's really cool to actually have the Istio Cuddle command line as kind of a proof of concept prototype for what we would have in there. It's pretty nice. I like
Thank you. So it looks like we only have time maybe to discuss one of these. The ideas I had for subcommands were add to mesh, which just helps the user manipulate the injection settings on live pods, this test connectivity, and gateways. Gateways is something I'd be curious to know what people think of. It was just because I noticed that in the book info documentation, we had many, many paragraphs to help people find where they had deployed their stuff. The idea was, wouldn't it be great just to type Istio control gateways and have it cough up the list of all of the virtual services from all of the gateways with the service public IP and node port in there. So I'm just going to, instead of talking about it, encourage people to read it and make comments on it for the next meeting. Test connectivity was a debugging thing, just to tell why the networking isn't working. Maybe we can skip talking about that one. Add to mesh was something that I sort of want feedback on before I implement it. It's What I noticed was that a lot of people had something that was complicated because they had a bunch of microservices that were HTTP and worked really well with Istio, and they would have something like Cassandra that maybe managed its own networking and it didn't work. And they would add Istio, it would make the default namespace auto-inject, and then nothing would work, and then they would really struggle not realizing which thing didn't work. And what I started playing with was I started deploying things into a pod that didn't have auto-inject, or that had auto-inject, and I had annotation to turn this to false. And I started using kube control patch. So I would bring up everything without Istio, but Istio was there and the injector was running. And then I would use kube control patch to inject the pods one at a time to see which pod, when I injected it, caused things to stop working. And then when it did stop working, I would uninject that one and keep going. It gave me a very nice list of which pods played well with Istio and which pods didn't. And then I thought, well, this particular command is really easy. I could just tell people to do this, but everyone I talk to hates kube control patch. They can't figure out the syntax. So the idea was, could we just have some sugar around doing that for all the things that you'd want to deploy, a particular microservice or maybe a deployment, just to tinker with these annotations. What do we think about this idea?
So is the auto injection turned on in the namespace, but you've got something set up so that you're going to disable everything with this annotation by default until you start using Istio control to one by one add them? Is that the idea? If
you're timid, you make a namespace with the label, without the label for auto injection. You make a new namespace and you deploy into that namespace. This is for timid people. And then you run add to mesh minus service reviews. It still reload, still works. Add to mesh product page, reload, still works. Add to mesh ratings. We deployed ratings with MySQL instead of the dummy one that stops working. Something like that. Or we add to mesh each sort of thing to see which thing does it. So it's more of just a technique for people, because so many people come to me and they just don't know how to debug and they don't want to. This is a way of just dipping your toe into Istio rather than your whole namespace.
I'm not sure I understand the difference with the annotation versus just doing Istio control. Like, okay, starting up all your services without kube inject turned on, no injection, and then you're just doing one by one Istio control kube inject, and then just apply again just over. Is that the same effect?
I guess it's the same effect. I guess there's no real difference.
I guess either way, the add to mesh is your easier way, and under the covers it'll do whatever it has to, whether it's
I found it
annotation or
because people are used to auto inject, and because I was doing I've been getting frustrated with the command line version of kube inject. I guess it works, but I just really liked turning the annotation on and off. That seems.
I think there's a lot of reasons to actually prefer having the injector managing, because eventually we should be able to do more lifecycle management in there, do upgrades, do other kinds of things that just the patching the pod spec doesn't do for you.
Yeah, I agree.
Like a whole namespace at a time, right? Which you can't do with.
Yeah, it does seem nice to just literally say that everything is going to have these sidecars right away. They're always there. It's just automatic, and then it's just a matter of enabling, disabling them kind of model. I could see that.
So I'd be curious for anyone who's debugging to try this patch and to tell me if you think that this is something users would like or not. To me, it sort of resonates with the fear of putting everything under Istio at once. So it's for the timid. It's not for you bold, leaders here. But I'm just curious for people to try it and let me know what they think of of it before I actually get to the work of implementing it.
So it sounds like a good question for the user experience survey. So, you know, if
Yeah.
it would be important to be able to turn on services one by one more instead of just, you know, jump in and find out nothing works.
I think we've heard from a lot of people that it is important to be able to do that. So yeah, it'd be good to get feedback, but I'm pretty sure the feedback will be yes, we need that.
Mm-hmm.
So in the last part, actually, you have this isn't this enabled. But what if there's something we could put in the, I don't know, the dashboard or in whatever that, like, it'd be nice to know which pods, namespaces, services, whatever are injected, right?
It's so true. You know, and we had some instructions that were, Lynn was telling people, not to pick on Lynn was telling people that they should be looking at the pod count. I came up with some craziness with custom columns to tell people. Why is my window not opening? Where's my custom column thing?
I really think an easy way to look at if pods have sidecars and maybe even the version, that really goes a long way. A reliable way of doing it.
Right. So I have I have a custom column thing that I like to show, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but that tells you sort of what all the pods are when you do kubectl list, but it's not permanent. So one thought I had was, you know, Istio control get pods that would sort of work like kubectl get pods, but tell you more things like if you had a sidecar or what version it was, or if the sidecar was healthy. Would we want something that looked like that, or would we want something that looked like the isMesh enabled? What should it say? Should it tell you if a single thing like a service has the mesh, or should it tell you all the pods in your namespace?
So it sounds like a question we can ask users too.
Yes.
Yeah, and for me, I would be interested to know whether the service has been still mesh enabled or has the sidecar, and what are the rules to route to the services mutual TLC enabled, and what are the kind of like the rules, or if they have multiple versions. I think that would be interesting to see.
Yes. So let me think. Let me just paste this right here. All right, so when I do kubectl get deployments and I tell it, and not this one. This is the one. This is how I've been telling people to tell me if they have the sidecar.
So in Istio WG, we have a similar mechanism for looking at the pod spec and then figuring out if your containers, the list of containers has Istio proxy.
Yeah.
Refer you to the logic there too if you want.
That would be good. We could use the Istio vet logic. We could also, I also would want to see, I think, the version of the proxy. I'm not sure if when we do an upgrade, if I don't think the injector reruns, so until a pod dies, it's running the older version. So I'd be curious what people sort of dream about when they think about this.
I'd love to talk about this more after run though. I think we could, let's continue discussing sort of the observability part separate from the adding part. I think they're both useful, both needed.
Okay. Well, I think we've had a good discussion. Does anyone have any comments before we close the meeting? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ed.